Taylor Brown, and this is a gathering of priestesses, and we are blessed with an abundance of priestesses this evening. Of course, we have the beauteous Miss Catherine Ravenwood modeling her latest finds from going shopping in Las Vegas without me, and Miss Okay, now we're going to sleep. Okay, and Miss Normandi Ellis and her friend Amy Auset Rohn. And they're going to be our guests this evening, and we're so delighted that you could join us, and we're delighted to have you on the show, as always, Normandi. As far as Normandi is concerned, we're not going to ask her the standard question tonight because she's been on enough that I will post a link to earlier shows she's been on, and you can hear all about her story. What I want to hear more about is Phoenix Ascending from her tonight. That's why I asked her on. And also some of the work that she and Amy are going to... Are we going to be able to call you Auset or Amy?
Usually for my spiritual work, I go by Auset.
Okay. For what work that she and Auset are going to be doing in Grand Rapids, Michigan. In Grand Rapids, Michigan?
Chicago. And Chicago.
And Chicago. Okay. So somewhere out there in the Midwest where most of us fly over. Yes, I know. Send your cards and letters to Gloria Taylor Brown. Yes, she is an anti-Midwest person. I lived there most of my life. I know what's wrong with it and ain't going back there. So, Miss... So, Normandi and Auset, thank you so much for being on this evening. And before we get started with all of this, I am going to ask Auset to tell us just a short bit about how she got started on her priestess path.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I got started on the priestess path. I had a friend who was working with a priestess in the Fellowship of Isis, and she said, hey, I'm going through this program to be ordained, and I think you would really like it. And it's one of those things that sometimes when people say things to you just in conversation, it hits you. And you know you have to pay attention to it. And a couple months later, she brought it up again. And so I checked into it, and I got started. And worked through the program with a wonderful woman out in California, and it just kind of blossomed from there.
Who was that you studied with?
Her name was Astara, and I don't think that she is, she kind of changed her focus a couple of years after I finished up working with her, so she was working more with essential oils and another healing method, and I don't think she was doing any priestess work at the time. Or
Astara Venus?
I'm sorry?
Astara Venus? Was that her name?
I don't think that was her last name, but I would have to check on what she added to it.
I know a woman who does essences and other stuff. Her name is Astara Venus, and we're going to try and get her on here sometime in November.
Could possibly be her, yeah.
Okay, well, great. So, Normandi, Miss Beloved. By the way, if you have folks haven't figured out who my all-time favorite guest, except for Catherine Ravenwood, is, it's Normandi Ellis. So, Normandi is, to put it bluntly, Normandi is the most brilliant woman I know, and I have met many, many, many women. She is not only beautiful, but she is able to be smart and funny. So, and I know, nothing like putting you on the spot, right?
Yeah, really.
But the truth is, from the time that I met her up at Nikki Scully's in Eugene for the Egyptian Mysteries class, I have just loved her absolutely, and we've gone to Egypt now several times. We've written a book together, and we still like each other.
Yeah.
Hey, you know, you couldn't ask for better than that.
And you know, I was going through some old pictures the other day, and I found a picture of you falling in the fish pond at Nikki's. It was wonderful.
Yes, well, I still remember the pee-pee dance, so I can tell that story.
I remember that, but I didn't know you fell in a fish pond. I want to see that picture.
So we have Patricia Haynes and Sonia and Bonnie Chevoet and a number of other people. I'm just looking at who's coming on the lines here. Reese Harrington, Rachel Evans, Yolanda. We've got quite a few people registered and more people coming in. And I want you all to know if you have questions for Normandi, just put them in the chat. You can actually designate them as a question. And if we can get to them, we will. If we can't, I'll give them to Normandi, and that will allow her to answer them at a later time. So what I'd like to know about is some of this work you're going to be doing up at the in Grand Rapids and in Chicago. So could you start telling us a little bit about it? I'm really fascinated.
Okay. I'm going to be at the Coptic Center, which is in Grand Rapids. I'll be there twice. I'm going to be there this weekend, September, what is that? September the 12th. And then I'm going to be there again October the 10th for the Spiritual Unity of Nations Conference. And what's going to happen in Grand Rapids, the first thing I'm going to do is this weekend I'm going to talk about the Ba and the Ak, which are the two higher spiritual bodies of the ancient Egyptian tradition. They're the ones that, if you were looking at the Tree of Life, they'd be at Kether and Hokmah. So these two are like permanent bodies. The other 7 bodies of the ancient Egyptian traditions fall away, but the Ba and the Ak relate to the soul and what I'm going to call the seed atom, or the phoenix part. And the talk that I'm going to do is about how the soul gathers information and through a lifetime adds it to the Akashic records. And at the point that you no longer need all of that personal transformative information that's recorded in the Akashic record of the soul, it's then transmuted into the phoenix and goes into basically the seed atom, which goes back straight up into the divine. So I'm going to talk a little bit about
atom, A-T-O-M, or
yeah.
atom, A-D-A-M.
Yeah, well, you know, in Egypt it's not that much different because Atum and Atom are the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the god Atum, who's the god of everything and nothing, the Alpha, the Omega, is basically what Atum is. He was nothing. He spoke the world into being. It was created out of his desire, and at the end of the world, it all rolls back inside him. So, and that's kind of how the phoenix, you know, takes its information back to the source.
So how do you relate this? I want to understand how you relate this to the phoenix.
Well, that's basically what the ancient Egyptians call the Bennu bird.
Okay.
Okay, and interestingly enough, it's not talked about a whole lot in the Middle Kingdom and the New Kingdom, which is where we have most of our, you know, traditional understanding of ancient Egyptian spirituality. We get it out of the Book of the Dead. This is mostly from the Unas text.
Yeah.
And so it's Old Kingdom. It's very old, and it's the junction between information about the Ba and information about the Ak. It is the only text that talks about the ladder of ascension, which is in the Unas text.
Okay, so did you have in Awakening Osiris anything that talked about the ascension?
I did some work with the Phoenix, and we did Becoming the Phoenix, you know, and then we did several other becoming processes. But a lot of what came out of the papyrus of Ani, there were some things that weren't in that papyrus, and so I found references to it back in older texts. And so I incorporated as many texts and as many transformative pieces that I could into that one book. So though it wasn't in Ani, it was part of Awakening Osiris.
Yeah, it's part of the reason I'm so interested in this is that one of the things that I have a journey to with the Phoenix that I've had from Wild Women. And in that journey, I was told that the Phoenix was related to much older mysteries than those that were recorded in the text that we were looking at the Egyptian text. And so, and of course, your work is sort of related to some of the very earliest text we have, the text from the Pyramid of Unas, the graves. And, you know, one of the things I was told was that this was it was a translation, is what I was told. I'm trying to get the terms right. And it was from an earlier text we no longer had available. So that's why I'm really fascinated by what you're doing, because I know that you have access through your studies not only to the physical facts that we have available, but also the spiritual connection going back far into time.
Right. Well, I think you're right, and you're onto something. The trick with looking at Unas, which is what has so fascinated me for years, and Auset and I are going back to Unas again. She said, I want you to teach me hieroglyphs. So it's like we're looking at it together now, which is really exciting. But the thing that's so amazing about it is that when you look at the inscriptions on the wall, they are absolutely perfect. They are so exquisitely detailed and carved. For them to be the first time that that information ever appeared doesn't make any sense. So yes, I think it's copied from something earlier. That text is 5th dynasty Old Kingdom, but it refers to the ascension text refers to the step pyramid, which was built in the 3rd dynasty. And we don't have any texts about that, and that's like Imhotep and pretty far back. And of course, if you have a text that looks like it's pristine and it just arrived full-blown, you know it was copied from something else. You know?
Right.
So
there's
where it came from, yeah.
Yeah, there's no in-between there where the things developed. So if you look at our language, you can see how the language developed. Even though English is a very bastard language, don't get on me, people. That's what it is. Which has picked up pieces all the way along the way and added to it. If you go back to early Anglo-Saxon writings, and you can see where they actually came from. You know, some of it from the Romans, some of it from the Greeks, some of it from the runes or the Nordic, and with the hieroglyphics, it was like, oh, perfect, let's do it right now. And by the way, not only are we going to do it perfectly, we're going to carve it in stone.
Right, right. And we're going to do it in bas-relief so that it's not carved in, it's coming out from the stone. And it looks like it's emerging from the stone, which is much harder.
Right.
So I really think that there was a technology that we don't give them credit for. There were stories of how this information traveled from places like Atlantis. You know, possibly there are lots of mysteries and connections and clues that lead us to think that Egypt, you know, used to have a lot of savanna land, and it wasn't all desert, and there was a lot of coming and going much before the Egyptian civilization. So, you know, I think to say with any certainty, yes, this is how it happened, we cannot do that because we just don't have the material to back it up. But to say with some sort of emotional clarity and affirmation that it feels, the information feels like it came this particular way. You know, that's about as close as we're going to get until we dig down in the ground and find what we're looking for. And I don't think that that's impossible, because we're finding a lot of things, satellite, you know, that are much, much older than we've ever thought were there. So, you know.
Yeah, speaking of which, today on this morning on the news, they had that they have just found near Stonehenge a much larger henge, where the stones were not only originally obviously standing, but they've been pushed over and covered over with grass, and now they're under the ground. And the archaeologists are all excited about getting to dig them up.
Right, right. And then, of course, we know there's that much, much older pyramid, which was found in Europe, which is probably the biggest pyramid that we know of, and which, by the way, I'm going to be at a conference in May that's called the Pyramid Conference that will talk about pyramids all over the world. And so I'm going to be keynoting there as well. So, yeah, lots of stuff going on.
Yeah, well, it's fascinating, and I'm sorry if I do want us to put in some base work here for anybody who's not flying quite at the heights that Normandi is. Normandi has been studying the Egyptian hieroglyphics almost as long as she's been alive. The only way, I mean, it's been what, 35 years?
Close, yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, she cut her teeth on hieroglyphics. They gave her the Rosetta Stone to gnaw on, and kind of like the Pyramid of Unas, which sprang full-blown with bas-relief hieroglyphics. Her first book was Awakening Osiris, which is still one of the premier and important books for any spiritual traveler who is taking a trip to Egypt or who is taking a trip within the spiritual realm. And so her history goes back quite some time with this, and in addition to that, her studies have been very deep, and over a period of time she has basically become, well, I guess we can call you an expert on all things Egyptian and all things spiritual, at least of that level of coming out of the Egyptian tradition and coming out of the Western traditions. And so if we've lost you a little bit, put the questions in there and we'll catch up with you. I want to go back to the Phoenix.
Okay.
So tell me about the point about the Phoenix ascending.
Okay. One of the things that Nikki Scully and I were doing when we were creating the Union of Isis and Thoth, which is the book that's going to be coming out in November, December of this year, and we're doing page proofs for it now. We did a ladder of ascension journey through that, and that was part of a work that was building all the way through that entire book. And so it's really a culmination of information, but it has to do with when you are still in a physical form and you do this ladder of ascension journey and make of your spiritual being a phoenix. You go up this ladder to talk to the ancestors and to sort of download the divine plan and bring it back to earth. Now that's something that that was a shamanic initiation rite back in the day when the Pharaoh was going through his Hebsed festival at Saqqara, right outside Unus's pyramid. And that whole text of Unus, once you start looking at it, is a text designed for the soul to leave its body and make contact with its ancestors and to have a conversation with its ancestors so that you can come back down and download the plan and figure out your place in it. Now, how does a culture last for nearly 3,000 years with each pharaoh, each person building one on top of the other, all of these different components that create this culture? It's because they've gone up, they've gotten the download, and they've come back down and said, okay, this is our part of it, and this is what we do, and they build it to the best of their ability, and when they pass on, their people go up the ladder and ascend and talk to the ancestors, those on the other side, and say, okay, what's our part of the plan? Where are we going with this? You know, you come back down, you do the work. And so it's really a shamanic initiation. And that process is through what's been called a technu. And a technu is an individual who goes into a trance, probably placed into this trance. Now, we don't do this when we do the book, but this is how the ancient Egyptians did it. They put this person into a trance, usually some hallucinogenic and a near-death experience is induced, and they're gone for 3 days. And they're completely mummified and carried on a sledge into the tomb, and there are these images of them awakening, you know, similar to the images of Osiris awakening that you see at Abydos, where he's mummified, but you see him with his hand up to his face like he's just waking up, you know, and then he gets his arm out, and then he unwraps himself, and then, you know, suddenly he becomes alive again, but he's alive inside this tomb. So my take on the Pyramid of Unas is not that it is read by the priests as you're going in, but by the awakened one who has gone into this life and death experience and come out and finds himself inside this tomb and says, now what? Where do I go? You know, you don't want to go east because, you know, that's like, you know, that's the west is the land of the dead, and the east is crawling back into the womb almost. So you want to go to the north, which is the imperishable stars, which is taking the ladder of ascension, and you go up, and that's how you meet your ancestors. That's where you go. You meet the gods and the goddesses in that connection, and then you bring that plan back down. And who holds the ladder but Horus and Set, the two, you know, adversaries are the two that hold the ladder so that you go up and down this ascension. And it's kind of like going up and down the spine, almost like a Kundalini experience, you know.
I gotta say, there's a part of me that the idea of Horus and Set holding the ladder makes me feel very insecure. Because what if right whenever I'm up at the top, they decide they want to have a battle?
No, they're working together. They're like opposites that are working in harmony. They're the two pieces that are working in harmony now. So the battle's over.
Is that like the, is that similar to the Kabbalah tree of life?
Yes.
Also
yes.
to the pillars that the high priestess sits between?
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, so it's fascinating. So, by the way, Raven, it's probably the escalator.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Gloria, little side note, Gloria and I were on a long journey one night, and Gloria started up this escalator and was not going to come back. But here she is, because I was left to guard her, so I brought her back. But yeah.
Well, that's good.
I think it was something like that.
Yeah. So, all right. So
it is a staircase. By the way, it was originally a staircase, like the step pyramid. It was originally designed as a staircase, an escalator. Yep, I can see that.
Yeah.
That's where she went.
That's where she went.
It was up into the stars. So I'm just fascinated by this because you know, part of it is Raven is in the process, in the middle of a shamanic process, and I'm putting it on the screen to let you tell about it. In her altar room, Raven is our queen of altars, and or the high priestess of altars. She's had an altar room that has been a room that has been dedicated to an altar for a number of years. And in addition to all the altar space that she has in her house. So you want to tell us about what's going on around your altar? Because I'm just seeing that this is part of it.
Well, last weekend I was down at the Sekhmet Temple, and I was part of a retreat of these women who were teaching a level of shamanic astrology, and we were looking at the new Venus cycle, and I am really explaining this badly. It's going to be short. Sorry, Tammy. Sorry, Kaylin. But the new Venus cycle, Venus is in Leo now, which of course is Sekhmet. And so we were down at the temple in Nevada to watch Venus rise and to experience this. Well, they compared the Venus journey as a story with Inanna, who goes down through the underworld voluntarily and then has to come back up. So Venus rises, it goes down, it's gone for a while, it comes back up again. So my journey, as we went down through the 7 gates, it was really amazing, and it was like a shamanic death, because at the very first gate they took away my memory. At the second gate, a grandmother said, "Give me your crown, it's your wisdom, you can't have it anymore." "Don't worry, I'll hold it for you," she said. Then they ate my throat, and you'll love this, Normandi. My first thought was, if you're taking my voice, how will I speak the words of power when I'm in the dua? And they said, it's voluntary, you don't have to go. And then Sobek ate my heart, and then a big python came and squeezed the will out of me, and then I dropped down into this big, huge, just dropped way down into this water, and this very goofy Finding Nemo kind of fish came and ate me. And then I looked up and saw these big breasts and realized I was in the belly of a fish goddess, and I thought, oh, this is good, I'm going to get reborn. And she pooped me out after a while with this splat. And then, this is the best part, this very handsome, hunky god came right up in my face and winked at me, and it was Khnum. So the pooping out was the clay, and I'll be back on Khnum's wheel and be reshaped and remade. But in the meantime, Sekhmet told me to dismantle my altar room, take everything out. She wanted a wall painted red, and she wants the south wall painted red, and in my tradition the south is white, not red. So I've already had to lose my memory and my wisdom. So I'm painting the altar, and so my layers and layers and layers of altars are completely dismantled. The room is empty except for painting stuff. Not quite finished. And I don't know what's going to happen when I come back, so we'll see. It's very traumatic.
I can imagine.
It is
I
true.
just had mine taken apart, washed everything.
Yeah.
With holy water, put it back in different places. Yeah.
Well, mine is, I mean, the tables are gone. I've taken it down and washed things, but I've never taken all the altars down at once. And they're all gone. The whole room's empty.
Wow.
So because of that, it's just my vision whenever you were talking about this is the idea of ascending into the promised land, whatever it is we're ascending into, or descending into the Duat. It is a transformation that I think that not only Raven is going through, but I think it's a transformation we're all going through. I think that we're in an extremely transformative time right now.
We are, and I was reading information on the blood moon of September and the eclipses, and their connection to really outer quasi-planets that are beyond Pluto, one of which is called Mucky Mucky. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. But when you look at the way it's spelled, it's like make, you know? But it's really about letting go of what we thought we were doing and connecting a new divine will. Everybody's feeling the acceleration. We're all feeling this push of like, man, this is happening fast. Mm-hmm. And it's happening very intensely. And the transformation is beyond anything that we've experienced. And it's really, at this point, probably the strongest it's going to be, which is all part of this Uranus-Pluto square that we've been going through, as well as the placement of Neptune in it, and it's really slow movement into the new age. It's really the movement into the new age. That's what we've done.
Well, we've also got, who was it, Raven? I'm sure you're better memory than I do. Someone who said that we have 5 planets that are in retrograde right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Maya?
Huh?
Yeah, Maya?
That we have 5 planets.
Was that Maya White?
Was that Maya? Maybe it was. But I also was thinking about one of our other guests we had was Dr. Jean Logan from the Healing Ground Farm, who did some work on the holy sacred glyphs. And she had, I was trying to find it so that I could pull it up here. But she's got the glyphs that are basically, they're a series of glyphs that are the idea that you take these glyphs and you put them on your body and they heal you in different ways. Well, going back a few eons to an early Egyptian mysteries class, we did a class with you, Normandi, where we were talking about the hieroglyphics and the hieroglyphics of our names and how those hieroglyphics are more than a writing on the wall. You want to go into that? I'm not going to steal your thunder on that.
Gosh, I'm trying to remember what we did then. We did hieroglyphic thinking is basically what we did.
Yeah.
And we worked with how the glyphs were used. I mean, I've gone past that now to where I'm doing what I call Medu Netter, which is a step beyond hieroglyphic thinking, where we're using hieroglyphs in an oracular mode. And so I'll be doing a workshop in Chicago on Medu Netter October the 1st. And then I'm going to be doing one here in Chesterfield on the 20th. Is it the 20th of November? We're having a Women of Spirit workshop here. Auset and I, and Sonia Phoenix, Eisenhart, and Indigo, Ron Love, she's going to come. So the 4 of us are doing a weekend, and I'll be teaching Medu Netter as the oracular hieroglyphs. And Medu Netter, literally translated, means the Word of God. So it's, yeah.
Well, the thing I was thinking about was that in the hieroglyphic thinking, that the base of the hieroglyphs are that they are not just a writing. They are not just something somebody used in order to convey a sound. They are that which not only conveys a sound or a word, but it also conveys a meaning, and it steps back to, it conveys it from the Word of God.
Right, and it's so image and sound and narrative, we'll call it a narrative, because each glyph is like a myth. It exploded, if you will. And so, yeah, hieroglyphic thinking is how to take all of that information where a sound, which is a glyph, is also a fun, which is also kind of the way you dream, the way you dream an image, and you start to think, okay, how does this work, and why this particular image, and and I always tell people it's kind of like, I'm going to use this example because I can. I had this friend who had a dream of, she said, I keep dreaming that I'm falling off a cliff. She said, I don't understand why I'm falling off this cliff. And I said, well, are you leaving your husband? She said, well, what makes you say that? I said, well, because his name's Cliff. You know, so it's like, you know, that's how the hieroglyphics work. It's a pun. It's something. It's a dreamlike image that tries to telegraph information to you as quickly as possible. And so to try to translate a glyph, you have to explode it to the point that it becomes almost an entire paragraph all in itself. That's why this very small Egyptian Book of the Dead becomes a very large Awakening of Sorrows. Because I was trying to get as much of that in there, and every time I went through it, I would see something different. You know, and I translated that book from beginning to end 3 times. You know, and it took me 10 years to just figure that out. So we're having fun within this.
Yes, lots of fun within this. It's very exciting.
What'd you say, honey?
I have a question for you.
Okay.
With all this information that's coming in, and the speed of all of this, and I know, you know, if we're going to be moving more into these thinking in hieroglyphs, and if we are the seeking phoenix and we're going to take this information back to a tomb, what's happening to our brains?
They're getting rewired.
So can you
getting
talk
rewired.
to us about that?
Well,
What do you think is happening?
well, okay. Here's what I think is happening, and I'm going to do a hieroglyphic take on it.
Okay.
Which is, I believe that the goddess Neith, who's the goddess of the net, she's like your, she's your electrical system, okay? And she's the one who telegraphs the information. This thread goes here, it goes down here, comes back up. She weaves the DNA. It's like she's getting us primed into this new stew, is what she's telling me. We're in a new stew, you know, the same way that the web of light on the water weaves a particular place. She's reweaving us. It's like we're in this pool of energy, and she's rewiring us. And I feel that that's what's happening to our brains, that they're being rewired, that the energy, you know, when an animal learns a task, that the learning is passed on to its progeny, you know, and so the rat who learns the maze, his children run faster than the other children who have parents who never learned the maze. You know, it's kind of like the 100th monkey thing. So the more of us that are beginning to awaken and to access these higher realms, and there are more and more and more people, you know, accessing the higher realms. Many people talking about spirit, not so many people talking about my God, my religion. You know, they're talking about, you know, broader aspects of spirit. And so many people are reaching that level that there's going to be a huge leap, I believe, a huge leap forward. And I believe we're probably already in it. We're already leaping. I don't think there's any way, if you look at children right now, there's not any way that a child in this day and age could go back and understand the kind of life that we lived, because it didn't exist for them now. There's no trace of that anymore, and they're just going and leaping and going farther and farther into the future. And I just think that, you know, it's an incredible thing. We have to be very careful, because our thoughts are creating our reality more and more and more. And so we have to make sure that the reality that we're creating, we are all connected to a consciousness and an energetic that's going to be beneficial for the planet rather than negative. You know, anytime you're in a group of people, people in this gathering of priestesses, you know, we are creating an energetic code just by the thoughts that we're thinking, because we carry these pieces of information away and we disseminate them to other people, and they also build on that information. Now we can do that really consciously, you know, through these types of broadcasts, through any type of spiritual discipline, but it happens unconsciously when you get groups of people like the Islamic State sending out videos of negative thought patterns. And so we have to make sure that there are more and more of us trying to get this information out and up to people who can use it and transform it as a counter to the very unconscious and yet very strong negative information that is also a web. And so again, we have these two poles. You know, you have Horus and Set holding this ladder of ascension. We're gonna ascend. How we do it is a different thing.
And I love, I know, Gloria, you were a little bit like, oh, I don't know about Set and Horus holding onto this ladder. But, you know, when she's describing that, for me, Set has been very close. And I have never experienced him in a dark light. And so when she's talking about them holding this ladder, for me it would be him showing us, you know, so Horus is that aspect of, you know, constantly having to rise above, rise above, rise above. All of his scars, all of his pain, all of his battles, he succeeds and he gets to the next level. And who is it that gets him there? It's Set. And it's Set that he's not there to bring him down, right? He's there to help him. And so all of these terrible experiences that he goes through teach him something about himself. And I want to go back to Raven's shamanic journey and experience with Sekhmet, because also in my experience in life, whenever it is time to move forward, even when we don't think we're ready or we don't want to be ready, Sekhmet is always right there. Right there. You see me wrong again. She's always right there because she is that tough love mother who says, you don't need your pacifier anymore. It's time to move on. And so we have our little temper tantrums and we cry and we sorry, can I say that? We bitch and we moan, and you know, she helps us. And then Set is right there. He's that more, you know, that masculine side of helping us to descend into our deepest, darkest, shadowy side and just deal with it already. And then once we deal with it, you know, both he and Sekhmet are that element of fire. So they're burning away all of our fears, all of the things that we don't need, so that all that is left is our wisdom. It is our power. But we're finding it in different ways than we used to. Does that make sense?
One of the things I really like about this is that she's talking about Set, but she's also talking about Saturn. For astrologers out there, she's talking about Saturn, who is Set, who is the teacher. And Saturn right now is at 29 degrees Scorpio. It's considered a critical degree because it has all of that scorpionic energy that's just carried it through for the last 2.5 years, and it's about to trip into Sagittarius, which of course is the archer that just shoots into the heavens, you know. So Saturn of limitations, of darkness, of, you know, woo-woo scary shadow, but it's about to shift and transform. And you know, Raven, when we were talking about the tree of life and the two pillars, you know, with Horus and Set, if you go further down on this tree of life, you've got Kaibet and you have Sahu. And Kaibet is considered the dark shadow, the part that we always project on somebody else, but really is part of us. And the Sahu is the light shadow, which we always say, oh, that person is so smart, you know, and really that's us, you know, and we don't own that any better than we own the dark shadow. We have to have both of those recognitions that, you know, we sit between those pillars. It's going to help us get up there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, it's interesting. One time I was meditating on the High Priestess, and you know, she sits right up there in the middle, and I was asking her about her place on the Tree of Life, and she said to me, I am the last altar you must cross. You must cross me as the altar to go either way. Mm-hmm. So I just think that's very interesting that the the place between the pillars is the place of beauty, and it's the place of wisdom, and it's the place of not being in duality. And yet we live in duality, and we have to live in duality to learn the difference.
Right.
But
right.
there is always that part of us and of the grander scheme that holds that place. And accessing that within ourselves, I think, is pretty incredible. And every once in a while we do, and it's like, wow.
Right.
Just a little bit. Just a little bit.
And I do want to say that my issue around the idea of Horus and Set holding the ladder was not a problem with Set. It has never been a problem with Set. I've been very comfortable with him for a very long time. My problem is that they spent a long time battling.
Yes.
And, you know, the day that they're holding the bottom of the ladder, for me, I don't want them to decide that's, you know, do a battle.
Well, when they shake it up, then the ladder becomes the DNA, which we were working with the Pyramid of Unas the other day about how, you know, she was talking, and it's all just this poetic back and forth of, you know, all of your Akashic records being stored within your body, within your DNA, and then you're born, and then, you know, you get squashed again and buried like a seed, and you're grow again. So it's just this big, beautiful cycle. So don't worry if they shake it up. It's all good.
I'm not too worried about it, but you know, it's interesting. One of the things that happened to me several days ago was I had something happen to me that I've never had happen before, and whenever I talked to my doctor about it, they called it neuralgia, but I experienced it as though my nerves were on fire. And it was like different parts of my body were being stung by bees. And it went on for several hours until the end of the evening. And it was just like all of a sudden a bee would sting me like that. And it would, and I mean, it was as severe as a bee sting. That's how hard it hurt. And there was nothing happening. I was laying in my bed. And this went on until sometime in the wee small hours of the morning. And my impression from it was that it was a reprogramming of my nerve system. And so the idea that the nerves, that the net is being rewoven, I want to go back to that, because I think that one of the things that is happening is we have, in a way, figured out ways to almost overwhelm ourselves. And in order to function, we need to have that reprogramming to move. As I was talking to someone yesterday, you know, with reasonable certainty, I know I can be here another 30 years because my great-grandmother was here for another 30 years, you know, and with current health and what have you, there's probably a reasonable expectation 30 to 50 years, all right? So if I'm going to be here for another 30 to 50 years, what am I going to do with that time? You know, things are changing so fast now. They're changing so rapidly, and for good or for bad, that as we are experiencing this, it is for each one of us, it is necessary to be reprogrammed, to move into this new space, this new light, this new net that is there.
Right, and I think that goes back to what is the reason for the ascension process? What is the reason for our going into whatever astral realm we go into and download this plan and bring it back? Part of it is that with longer longevity, we need to be able to time travel. We need to be able to move between dimensions. We need to be able not only to envision a future, but to go back into the past and make some rectifications that are necessary. Because this plane that we think of as time, beginning, middle, and end, only exists when you're in a physical body. When you go out of it and you go into another dimension, you're not in that anymore. You know, a heron can fly upstream or downstream. Either way, it doesn't matter. You know, the heron, the image of the awkward, you know, can go upstream or downstream. It doesn't matter. But where it fishes, it only exists in the present moment. You know, and so what we're talking about when we go up and this ladder of ascension is being able to have this overarching view of what is the plan, not just now, what is my piece, but what's the plan, you know, the big plan. And how do minute changes here and there affect what has been and where it's going. I mean, I have gotten to the point where I think somebody will tell me, oh, you must have had many lives in ancient Egypt. And I'll say, you know, sometimes I think I'm living them simultaneously. It's almost as if, or I'm living this one now so that I can go back there and figure out what the heck I was doing and then do it right. You know, because I don't think that my body is limited to time. When I dream, I'm not limited to time. You know, when I trance, I'm not limited to time. I'm not limited to this space. I go, and I talk to people in other dimensions all the time, other planets all the time. You know, so it's, you know, we're talking really about changing things in the here and now so that the here and now is always here and now.
Right.
Yeah. And that's the whole point, is to be able to make the ascension so that you can have the long view of the whole thing.
So Normandi,
yeah.
How do we do that?
Well, one of the things that you have to do is you have to let go of your attachments to the past and to time and space altogether. I mean, that's one of the first things that you have to do, is you have to let go of this happened to me, therefore. You have to let go of all of that. Because all you have is what's happening right now. Right? Because you can go back and change your past. You can make... there's one thing that the spiritualists say, which I really like, and they'll say, the door to reformation is never closed against any individual here or in the hereafter. And I like that, you know, because we're not going to die and then it's all done. We take everything of who we are with us at any moment. Right? And when we sleep, we experience a little death. We wake up in the morning, it's a brand new day. We're here for this one moment all over again. Everything that we think is the past, you know, it's just water down under the bridge. You know, it's all we have is now. All we have is now. But when we ascend, we have all of it. Does this make sense? I hope it does.
Yes. So from that practical aspect then, I mean, I agree. I mean, I'm a Cancer. I know I have to let go of the past. I totally get that. Gripping. But, I mean, would you recommend, is there something people can do to help them with that? You know, exercises, meditation. I mean, what? I'm just asking a big general question. I know it's going to be different for everybody.
One of the things that I've been doing when I do these long, like the talk I'm doing in Chicago is very brief. It's an hour, but I'm doing a 9 to 4 workshop on Ascension in the Phoenix here in Chesterfield on the 26th of September. And in that process, we are going to go through all of the memories of the moment that matter to us. And I'm going to actually have you create a body of yourself with these beautiful memories that you have, horrific memories that you have, And you're going to hieroglyph them onto the body so that when you look at it, you know your story. Somebody else looking at it may not know what that story is, but everyone is invited to view the story and to see everybody else's story, you know. And then you're going to bless that past. You're going to take that body and roll it up, and we're going to burn it during the process of meditation. And in that process, you're going to let go of everything that you wrote down on that piece of paper. It's all gone. It no longer exists the minute you put it in the fire. And so when you put it on there, you're making an agreement. This does not matter to me anymore. It no longer matters to me that my mother threw me out of the house when I was 5 years old and the bugs got in my hair and she wouldn't let me back in for 2 hours. That doesn't matter anymore. That's done. You know? It doesn't matter anymore that my heart was broken by this particular person. You know? That I gave too much. That doesn't matter anymore. If I write it down, it's going to go. It's all fodder, you know, for the fire. All fodder for the fire. And bless it, you know, because unless you let go of it, you can't create another reality. Because you've taken up that space of that new reality with this thing that you're holding on to. You know, I have a friend who cannot let go of the fact that his now ex-wife took $15,000 of his money. You know, I mean, he can't let go of it. And if he let go of it, I can almost see the life that he could create if he forgave her, forgave himself, because that's part of it, for being the idiot that let her do it. And then just, it's done, it's over. I don't ever have to think about that again. You know, it makes a whole new person, a whole new space in your head.
Well, at the first gate, they took away my memory.
Yeah, that was a good thing.
The very first thing that had to go.
That's it. That's a very good thing.
That was number one. Take
Right.
memory.
And they took your crown. All the good things that you've done, they don't matter either. Who you used to be.
You know, last year when I was at the Sekhmet Temple, I had a lot of things come up that really bugged my ego. And it was little things, but they really got to me. And I'd go, oh, okay, well, like I had brought down all these bags of rose petals I've been saving for months, and I didn't get to spread them out on the path. And at first I'm like, well, those were my rose petals, you know. And then I thought, it doesn't matter. Little stupid things like that kept bugging me. And so Sekhmet came to me, and she said basically, so, you know, you think you're a tarot reader and a pipe carrier and a teacher and a ceremonialist and a mother and all this. She went on and on and on. She said, well, you know what? There's any number of people that do it a whole lot better than you do, so just get over it, and who are you really? Mm-hmm. And that was last year. And now this year, they threw me down the Duat stairs. Well, they didn't throw me down, but I went. But, you know, I don't know that that's something we can do in an instant, but if I could learn how to do that in an instant, that would be very good. So good for you for teaching people how to do that.
Well, Amy, I'm afraid we haven't given you very much time here. What are you going to be teaching?
At the conference in November, I'll be teaching the introduction to the Egyptian pantheon. So it's a way to really get to know each of the Neteru as actual members of your family, your best friend, because each of them will come to you during a time in your life where a part of your story is matching a part of their story, and so that they have those kinds of lessons for you. And so I'll be talking about how to identify with each of the Neteru and how they are entwined in your own life, and we'll be writing some invocations to each of them, and learning about the different kinds of stories that they have so that you can kind of identify with each one during those times for extra guidance and wisdom. So it's going to be very practical but very woo-woo all at the same time.
Oh, it's not woo-woo at all. Raven and I live with those people all the time. have done for years.
Yes, yes.
So,
But I want to make it practical and real for people, because once, I like to say, once Egypt found me, and I surrendered and kind of just fell in, everything changed. So I want to teach people how to do that in their own lives when they're ready.
And I want to brag on Auset for just a minute. I want to tell you what my friend does. She's a harpist. She's a musician. She's also a numerologist, and she takes the sound of a name, of a divine name, like Nephthys, and it has particular chords that are associated with it, and she creates original compositions that are absolutely gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. Now, what is your website again?
If they want to find out about If you want to find out about my music, I'm at www.thelittleharpist.com, and information on my workshops and spiritual coaching and teaching is at thegoddessinside.com.
She's plugging in the battery.
The all-important plugging into the net.
That's right. That's right. Yes. So I definitely think people should check that out.
Okay, well, great. And you're both going to be teaching in November, and is that in Chesterfield?
It's in Chesterfield, that's right. And what did we say was the cutoff date?
The 20th, I believe. There's early registration until October 20th, and it's $75, and then after that it was $85, I believe.
Yeah, I think so.
So, but right now the information and link is on the Goddess Inside workshops page. So.
And that's for your all-day workshop?
Well, we're doing four of us are doing
$75. People, this is worth $775. Are you kidding?
Well, I'm glad you did so.
Yeah, so it's Friday night, and then it's Saturday all day. So.
And what we're hoping is that we'll get enough people interested in this area that what we would like to do is to put on a bigger goddess festival in May. And when the hotel's open, then there'll be much more opportunity and people to come and things to do. And so that's what we're hoping. And if Sonia's on, I don't know, Sonia Phoenix Eisenhart, if she's part of the group chat, she's going to be.
Sonia was on here early. Yeah, she's still here.
Yeah, she's going to be part of that too. And she's going to be doing some version of breath work that she's been doing with others. And I'm not sure what Indigo's doing, but I'm sure it's going to be fun.
Well, and so this weekend you're going to be in Grand Rapids, Michigan, is that correct?
This weekend I'm in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and I'm talking about the Phoenix. And then October the 10th, I'm going to be keynoting at the Spiritual Unity of Nations, and I'm going to be talking about Osiris, the Christ consciousness of the ancient world.
Whoa.
So that should be a lot of fun. Yeah. And I'm doing some clairvoyant circles. I'm in Dayton, Ohio on the 19th of September. I'm doing Egyptian Book of the Dead, talking about the books of the afterlife and how they function. And I'm also doing some workshops in Chicago on the symbolic and the real, which is basically about hieroglyphic thinking.
Now, are you, is your trip to Egypt in November, that's full?
It's December, yeah. It's December 3rd, and it is full. The April trip is filling. We have space is still available, but yeah.
And both of these are on the Affidina, so they're only 18 people? Okay.
All right, so limited availability if you don't sign up soon. But it's also, I'm just going to say it's worth it because you have a private chef, a private boat, you have Emil Shaker, and you have Mohammed Nazmi, so I don't know, it's just kind of all around wonderful.
Yeah, well, I used the picture of you and I and Muhammad.
Oh, no, Mohammed, he liked it right away. It's like, oh, yeah.
Anything that puts him in the center, he's happy.
That's right, he likes it.
And so Normandy is available. Auset, I'm sure you also do some traveling.
Yes. Right now I'm just traveling. I have plans with Normandi in October to travel with her and to offer some one-on-one sessions with people on consultations during that time. But I'm also I work from home, and so people want to have a reading or anything like that. I do spiritual coaching that lasts for 6 to 8 weeks, personalized programs for everyone. And then I am very interested in, adding on to my workshops. I've mostly been here locally, but it's time to start spreading out.
So if it's appropriate, we'll give phone numbers so we can do any.
Just give websites, because then I'll put them on the links.
Okay, good.
Because the phone number is on there.
Yes.
And I'll put that also on the link to the YouTube. And Raven, Miss Raven, who's going to be here at the crack of dawn tomorrow, and I'm going to actually pick her up at the airport.
Yay! Fun!
But she does do tarot readings and consultations and also tarot parties, and she's brilliant and wonderful, and if I haven't raved enough about her by now, just listen to a few of the other shows I rave about her in there.
And just further embarrass me.
Oh, I don't embarrass you.
Raven.
Yeah, Raven. Rave about Raven. What can I say? And I want to let you know that next week we will have Nikki Scully on, All the Gods Willing. Nikki's mother just passed away this last week, and she found herself facing some physical issues herself. So it could be that Nikki Scully will be on next week. If not, I will have someone else. And Raven will be here in San Diego with me, but she is also available. And I look forward to hearing more from all of you. I know that this is probably a very high-end class tonight, and some of you are going, what the hell are those people talking about? Talk to Normandi. She'll explain it all to you.
Yeah, right. Uh-huh.
And, we have reached now almost 12,000 views on YouTube, so tell your friends. Let people know we're almost at 800 in the Gathering of Priestesses. It is a closed group, which means you have to ask to join, and I have to approve you. It isn't closed in the sense that we don't want you telling other people about yourself, but there's so many people on Facebook that think that it is their goal in life to tell everybody about their multi-level marketing and everything else, and I just don't have the time to police. I'm sorry, folks. So I'm policing at the front end rather than policing in the back end. And I love doing these shows, and I want you to know that this is November is the next schedule that we're going to be filling. So if you're interested in being on the show, please let me know. Get in touch with me, Gloria Taylor Brown, SD, like San Diego, at gmail.com, or on a Gathering of Priestesses on Facebook, or go to Gathering of Priestesses on .com, and it will take you to the Facebook group. Anyway, I want to thank Normandi and Auset for being with us. I love you, I love you, I love you. You're my darling, darling, darling friends, and thank you for being here and coming through the... I'm not quite sure what this sound disturbance was. It sounded like the gods kept flushing the toilet on us, so...
Maybe it's
getting rid of what we don't need.
Whatever.
Right.
Anyway, thank you so much for being here, and thank you, Raven, for being here, and thank you, all of you, and particularly the ones of you that have hung in there for the extra 10 minutes over time here. Love you all. Thank you for being here, and good night.
Good night. Love
Good
you
night.
both.